Hello! Welcome to 70 Years, 70 Muppets, a Muppet fan podcast presented by ToughPigs.com. This is the podcast where we celebrate the Muppets' 70th anniversary with 70 straight weeks of spotlights on our favorite Muppet characters from the most popular to the most obscure. I am this week's host, Katilyn, and the Muppet of the Week is that dapper penguin, Nicky Napoleon. Performed by Jim Krupa and making his world debut in 1985 in the widely celebrated show Little Muppet Monsters. Here with me today to discuss penguins of all stripes is a well-dressed Tough Pig staff member, Matthew Soberman.
I don't know if you'd count a stained Bunsen and Beaker shirt as well dressed, but sure. Hi, happy to be here.
There are plenty of people who think Bunsen and Beaker are the epitome of Muppet style, so I think you're doing great.
Well, that may be the gravy stains talking.
There's more of gravy than of grave about us. So, thank you for joining me today to discuss Nicky Napoleon and all things penguins. Similar to other weeks of the Muppets' 70th campaign, I believe Nicky is sort of an individualized stand-in to represent an entire group, like the Muppet Tomato for All Talking Food or Camilla for All the Chickens, etc. And that permits us a little leeway in our conversation today. So, with that said, that makes this the perfect opportunity for us to finally turn a Tough Pigs podcast into an excuse to talk about sports. Can I interest you in discussing the hockey woes of the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Absolutely. If you don't mind dealing with the woes of the New York Islanders.
Well, the last 3 seasons have not been great for the Penguins. They recently fired their coach, who has now gone to the Rangers. So, how do you feel like the Islanders will match up against the Rangers now that they've got, you know, Penguin cast off as
I
their
don't know.
coach?
But the Islanders, of course, have been struggling, but we got the number one draft pick, which should be very interesting.
That's nothing to sneeze at.
No, that is not. Of course, with the way our fortunes go, we'll probably trade down, which in the end will benefit us, but will really put a damper on the draft party.
Well, that's how you get to be the Cleveland Browns. So we can just jump over to football now. This is going to go great. Okay, so we're not actually going to spend 20 minutes talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll save that for the Patreon. We're actually here to discuss Muppet Penguins, and specifically, if possible, Nicky Napoleon. So, Matthew, do you have a particular fascination with Nicky Napoleon, the Emperor Penguins in the orchestra, or Muppet Penguins in general? What brings you to this podcast today?
Well, I mean, the main reason I was interested in this is because, the fact that they picked Nicky specifically to highlight when his resume is so short. I mean, it's really Little Muppet Monsters, and the other thing that he is most known for is Muppet Vision 3D, which, as you know, if you've read our website before, I have a great affinity for Muppet Vision. I should note that I am dressed in black. This is a black Bunsen and Beaker t-shirt. I have entered the mourning period. So sad.
By the time this episode airs, the Muppet Vision 3D will have cannoned its last cannonball.
Yeah. And Pizza Rizzo will have served its last pizza.
It is sad, but that's not what penguins are about. The
No,
penguins are
no,
about
Penguins are a joyous occasion. But so the other thing that I was fascinated with in doing my research is, we've been told the old anecdote from Brian Henson where Jim would say, when in doubt, blow something up, eat something, or throw penguins in the air. And yet, the first Muppet Penguin did not appear until season 3 of The Muppet Show, which I thought was absolutely fascinating because we've been told this story like Jim had just been doing it for years, just throw penguins in the air. And this didn't come around until Jim was very well established and, had all the technical tools at his disposal.
That is an interesting point because obviously they'd been blowing things up for at least 20 years at that point. Wilkins and Wontkins had been
Yeah.
doing all sorts of inflammatory things before
And
then.
the eating bit, the inchworm sketch, comes to mind, or
Yeah, so those parts are foundational. And then penguins, as wonderful as they are and as iconic as they are, came rather late in that. So
yeah.
that's interesting and I love it.
Well,
I'm
I mean, Jim must have thought very highly of throwing penguins.
Well, once you find something that's fun, like it's hard
Yeah,
to let it go.
absolutely.
Just keep doing it. Well, so let's dive into Nicky Napoleon himself for a second, just to give him just a tiny bit of spotlight.
Mm.
So this character, if he can be called that, is the leader of an orchestra of penguins, or two orchestras of penguins. A conductor penguin and musician penguins appear in Little Muppet Monsters and Muppet Vision 3D. And in both cases, this is the name that they go by, but are they the same? Is it one of those ships of Theseus situations where members have been replaced one by one until, is it the same orchestra? Surprisingly, there's a lot to dive into here, but let's start with whether Nicky Napoleon is more than just a penguin at the front.
I mean, it's hard to tell when if it's a ship of Theseus situation when everybody's dressed the same.
Well, are the planks of that ship not the same? That
I mean, it's so hard to tell. You can't tell where the old planks end and the new planks begin. Um, I mean, obviously they picked Nicky Napoleon to single out for a reason. So yeah, let's get into that. Why Nicky Napoleon and why not another penguin? Not that many of them have names. Um,
Right, I think a few of them are named at the beginning, the pre-show of Muppet Vision 3D. They all
yeah,
start with E's, like they're Estelle
yes,
and
or Eugene.
yeah. So, yeah, who else would they have
That
spotlighted?
is that is the question. Like that is that. I mean, I can't really think of any more memorable name. I mean, the alliteration of Nicky Napoleon, calling them the Emperor Penguins. I mean, that's just a great band name. And I think the fact that, perhaps one of the Penguins' biggest roles is in Muppet Vision was a big factor. That's just my guess.
It's true. And I think, the Muppet Wiki states that, even Scooter in The Muppets Wizard of Oz just says that all penguins are the same, they're unisex and therefore indistinguishable and, don't have necessarily a personalities of their own. So the fact that Nicky Napoleon even has a name, even if we couldn't pick him up out of a lineup of penguins.
Yeah.
Which now that I say that, picking him out of a lineup makes me think of of the black and white prisoner garb.
The
And,
Penguins there.
and all the penguins are black and white. And that kind of typecast them throughout their career because like they were always dressed. I assume they're an orchestra because they're always dressed in tuxedos and
Yep.
they're waiters often because they're
Hmm.
always dressed in
In
tuxedos.
tuxedos, yep.
But now I want them to all be criminals because they're all dressed in black and white.
Hmm.
So kind of going back to thinking about whether Nicky Napoleon could have been a bit more singled out, more personality laden. Like if he'd been singled out on the Muppet Show, like say Rizzo, could he have been a bigger star too? Or what if Little Muppet Monsters had been a success?
Um, the trouble is with penguins is that you can't really get much dialogue out of them. I mean, in most cases, where we'll get into the exception to the rule, but yeah, I mean, I think the fact that we were able to give them, give Rizzo a distinct character, a distinct character voice. I mean, that's not to say they couldn't have done that with Nicky Napoleon, but that the lack of language barrier is a bit tough to navigate. So I don't know if he had become a big star. I think he may have become more recognizable, but I think ultimately probably would have stayed in the ensemble.
That's true. Although it is interesting because, like, unlike the chickens, which primarily cluck,
Mm.
uh, and the rats who primarily talk,
Mm,
the penguins will go back and forth to only that we're just quacking
mm.
or we are talk, we're singing, we're singing
Yeah,
Alabama Bound.
yeah, that is true.
It's a very big gap there. Not
Mm,
sure. They used whatever worked at the time to make it funny.
mm,
And they did try to give them sort of personalities because their designs changed from Little Muppet Monsters to Muppet
mm,
Vision 3D. Because in Little Muppet Monsters, a lot of them had distinguishing features. Some had eyelids, some had
mm,
like a hat. They had slightly different black-white tones in
mm,
their design. So I think, yeah, if perhaps if Little Muppet Monsters had been a
mm.
little more cohesive in what it was attempting to do.
Yeah,
For
that
those
is true. I mean, if it had run more than 3 episodes, perhaps they would have been more memorable. I was just rewatching the celebration of 30 years for the anniversary, and it is so funny that they go that they type up Little Muppet Monsters so much when by the time the special aired, the show had been canceled already.
I can definitely see why. I watched one episode in preparation for this podcast just to see what made Nicky Napoleon and the orchestra so definitive, and it was a hard one. And
Yeah.
for those who haven't seen an episode, I definitely encourage because there are things to like, and then there are other things you just have to wonder why.
Mm. I will also say our fellow Tough Pig, Shane Keating, also did a very thorough, comprehensive video featuring 1 second from every episode of Little Muppet Monsters. If you can track that down, I highly recommend it.
We will ask Jared to include it in the show notes. So let's talk briefly about that most distinguished penguin of all, Summer Penguin, from the
uh,
2018 Muppet Babies reboot. Did you ever get around to watching any of that?
I watched several episodes. I can't say I watched the whole series, but I popped in and out. Um, Summer was, the fact that Summer was the only one not uniquely based on an existing Muppet at the time. I think it gave them a lot of freedom. Certainly, perhaps a more nuanced, developed than the other ones, than the other characters. I think I found a lot of empathy from Summer that perhaps you don't get that, warm, fuzzy embrace from the other Muppets because they are so, based on their Muppet personas. I mean, Summer is Summer's a unique character, and in terms of personality, yeah, I think perhaps she was a bit more developed than her fellow Muppets.
Yeah, I think you're right in that the creators probably felt like they had more room to make her into a character of her own rather than having to shoehorn her into something that came before. And so, yeah, she did a lot of creative type things. She was always
Mm.
painting. Uh, I
The
have,
detective,
yes,
I
the
know.
detective that uh, reminds me of, Inspector Red with her magnifying
Yeah.
glass. But yeah, I've watched again several episodes because I do have a kid around the age
Mm,
that would have been watching that, and
mm,
uh, she was honestly just like one of the gang. She had just as strong a personality as Piggy, but yet wasn't held back by necessarily needing to be, Scooter's twin. So she didn't have like because Skeeter was an original character on the original Muppet Babies, but being Scooter's twin, she always had that attachment, whereas Penguin was sort of her own character.
mm,
And I think that helps her, to stand out. And I'm not, I
mm.
haven't done I haven't
I mean,
had,
it has been a while since I've watched the 2018 Muppet Babies.
right. And I was going to say that I
Mm,
haven't done a poll of all of the children who have to see if
mm,
Summer is their favorite character or if they do, latch on to something a little more familiar because their parents are like, yeah, Kermit or hooray, Gonzo. But I think that all of them got an opportunity to shine. So Summer definitely gets that moment for herself as well.
mm.
So back to the classic Muppet Penguins. What would you say is your favorite penguin feature from the Muppet Show?
Um, That is a very good question. I would probably say the one I was exposed to the most because I had those, those 90s compilation videos after the Disney agreement kind of went into effect was Lullaby of Broadway, which was the first the Muppet Penguin, according to Muppet Wiki. Um, that one's a good one. Another standout is Hawaiian War Chant because who would expect penguins in the tropics in a Hawaiian number? I think that's just the way the way that the Muppet people think, and it's just incredibly fun.
It does, yes, it absolutely just says Muppety upending expectations
Yes.
by putting penguins where you wouldn't expect them to be. Although there are
Yeah.
plenty of warmer weather penguin species out there.
Yes, but Hawaii, I don't know about that.
That's true. The other one I always think of is Alabama Bound.
Yes, that's the other standout.
And I'm kind of wondering now, as I think about it, like, are they on that ship to be kind of like Puritans? You know, because Puritans would wear black and white.
I think that that's got to be the connection, and it also maybe the fact that there hadn't been a real penguin focus number as there had been with the chickens. But yeah, I think the penguins probably were chosen for their uh color coordination.
Yeah, it did seem to be the most inspiring thing when considering. But like there have got to be so many extra Muppet penguins lying around. I
Hmm.
feel like someone could send one to me. I surely there
Or
is one.
throw one at you.
Oh, yes, that would be lovely. I would love it if someone threw a penguin at me
Actually, is that the first time that there were throwing penguins? That feels like that might have been the first episode
when there were that many. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole Muppet wiki page with GIFs of
of
penguins being
penguins.
thrown in the air. If you haven't
Yep,
seen
that
it,
is indeed the
oh,
first
nice.
instance of throwing penguins.
So, listener, I
Late
am
in season 3.
go to Muppet Wiki right now, everybody, and type in throwing penguins. You will not be disappointed. It is
Oh.
just so fantastic to watch over and over. Use them in your daily life. Well, Matthew, I think that brings us to my final and most important question, and that is whether you think Nicky Napoleon and his army of penguins could successfully siege Europe.
Well, it's funny you should ask because as we're recording this, to give you a little sense of the time frame, right now the Eurovision Song Contest is currently underway in Europe. I
Yes.
believe they could conquer Europe through Eurovision because they are incredibly musical, incredibly coordinated, great outfits, uh, great choreography. Throwing penguins, there's your big stunt. I believe they could conquer the hearts of Europe easily.
I love that because I just had to get something in there. You know, I assume that he's called Nicky Napoleon after Emperor Napoleon.
One would think.
There is also, in my research, I found that there's also a Caesar penguin who appeared on Sesame Street.
Hmm.
So it's just, you name your emperor penguins after
Emperors.
emperors from human history. Well, good.
Penguins
We will,
fiddle while George burns.
well, George Burns. I love it. Well, we will look forward to the penguins in Eurovision next year. We
Yes.
could, they might be American, but maybe we can sneak them in pretending that they're English.
Wouldn't be the first one.
We'll make it happen. All right.
So
Well, Matthew, do you have a surprise for us?
I do. I think I am finally finding my niche. I know people miss Hubba Wah, love Muppet trivia. So I have come up with the world's easiest Muppet trivia game. Uh Katie Lynn, it is time to play Muppet Penguin or Pittsburgh Penguin.
Yes. Although I'm worried that this might reveal me to be a terrible Penguin fan, either Muppet or Pittsburgh, but let's go for it.
I don't think you'll have much trouble with this. Um, and I can always drop hints along the way if needed. So the first I've got ten names. Half are Muppet Penguins, half are Pittsburgh Penguins, and obviously you're gonna have to guess which group each belongs to. So, I'll give you an easy one to start off with, the one we've been talking about this whole time, Nicky Napoleon.
I'm gonna go with Muppet Penguin.
That is absolutely correct.
Yes.
The second one, Marc-Andre Fleury.
I love Flurry, and yet I oh, I could go on about Flurry. Anyway, he was a Pittsburgh Penguin. He just retired this last season. But if anyone, I must say this, you have to go and find footage of him being a goaltender. He's a goaltender, and just the ridiculous saves he would make would drive you crazy and yet make you love him. So, Marc-Andre Fleury, huge fan. Pittsburgh Penguin.
Okay, absolutely correct. Another head scratcher, Summer Penguin.
I'm gonna go with Muppet Penguin, animated
Abs
Muppet Penguin.
but Summer did have a puppet form which came later.
Oh yes, what
They
was
did do a series of, I guess what you'd call music videos, or they did several sh puppet shorts for Disney Junior. And at that point, Summer did get a full-fledged Muppet form.
Oh, that's awesome. I need to go look that up.
Okay, so here's another tough one. Sidney Crosby.
Sidney Crosby, the current and for the past 18 seasons, Pittsburgh Penguin.
Yep. I mean, he spent his entire career in Pittsburgh.
That's what you do with a number one draft pick,
Oh yeah.
Matthew. You just tell the Islanders to do that, and they'll be fine.
Okay, we'll draft Sidney Crosby. Great.
Okay.
Um, Another one, Mario Lemieux.
That is another Pittsburgh Penguin, very historic and foundational for
Yes.
keeping the Penguins in Pittsburgh, even. For
I
him,
believe he's part of the ownership group now, right?
I think, I don't know. There's always question as to whether he's selling or not, and I
Uh,
believe he has sold, but he's
oh,
not
okay.
not invested. He still lives in Pittsburgh. Hey, this is Katilyn from the future, here to correct my past self. Mario Lemieux, aka Super Mario, is still an owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's a minority owner, with Fenway Sports Group having the majority, but still an owner. My apologies for the error. Now, back to the podcast. Everyone's
Yes,
getting their sports history, and I love this.
he's still a very much a key figure in Pittsburgh Penguins history.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's the next one, Winky Pinkerton.
Oh, goodness, that is a name that could be Muppet or real life person.
It
You just never know these things. But we're gonna go with Muppet Penguin.
That is correct. That was the name of that, didn't come until several episodes after his first appearance, but that was the name of the first Muppet Penguin.
Huh, missed that one in my research, but I can definitely see that being the like the nickname of some, defenseman who would get up in
Yeah,
your face and
definitely feels like in early days of the franchise.
yeah, like I could have played against Gordie Howe or something and
Absolutely. Next is Evgeny Malkin.
another Pittsburgh Penguin.
Yep. So number 8 is Elena.
I believe Elena is one of the E-named Muppet Penguins.
That is absolutely correct. You can see her name listed in an episode of Muppets Now, which is preparing this game was the first time I've thought about Muppets Now since it came out.
And I am guiltily still have not watched any of that.
You do not have to feel guilty.
But I will be remedying that for later.
Ah,
Hmm.
okay.
I tease.
Now, this is a personal one. I will be very disappointed if you don't get this one.
Oh no.
Brian Trottier.
That's a Pittsburgh Penguin.
That is absolutely true, and I picked him because not only was he a part of two Stanley Cup teams with the Penguins, he was also a key figure in the Islanders' early '80s dynasty.
Very good. And that explains why
Yes.
you were able to pronounce his name correctly.
Yes.
Nothing gets me more than someone saying Rocket Richard. It's Rocket Richard for
No.
anyone not in the know.
Yes. And if you don't and if you say it wrong, you will be ejected from the city of Montreal. Just a word of warning.
Just in case you're ever there and you
Okay,
need to know.
so you've gotten nine, you've gone 9 for 9 so far, but here is the insanely tough 10th question.
I'm ready.
Gloria Estefan.
We have not mentioned her, and it's a tricky one because she's named after someone important, but key, she's not named after a Pittsburgh Penguin. She is a Muppet Penguin from
That
the
is
2015 series.
that is very true. She is the penguin that Miss Piggy adopts. The real life Gloria Estefan played for the Florida Panthers.
Last year's Stanley Cup winning team.
Yeah, I mean, as we are recording this, the NHL playoffs are also underway. They could also very well be this year's Stanley Cup team.
It's true, but I'm feeling like this is Canada's year. They want it.
Oh, one can only dream. Well, you went 10 for 10 in this quiz, which means you have won the bonus question,
Oh
which
no.
actually does have a slight challenge to it.
Okay.
This is a once again a collision between Muppets and Pittsburgh Penguins. In the Muppet NHL Pin Series, so in the early to mid 90s, the Jim Henson Company collaborated with the National Hockey League to do several pieces of merchandise featuring the Muppets and every NHL team at the time. This included a pin set. So, my question to you is in the Muppet NHL Pin Series, which Muppet is featured in the logo of the Pittsburgh Penguins?
You share pictures of these all the time, and I know that you have personally shared the one that is a penguin, and I can't remember who it is exactly. So I'm just
Well,
going to guess Gonzo because he has a beak.
that is correct. Gonzo
Yeah!
stands in for the Penguin and the classic Penguins logo, probably picked because of the resemblance of his nose to a beak.
Oh, I need to get my hands on one of those too. If someone could throw one of those at me, that would be great.
Flip Penguins pins, just flip anything Penguin related.
I'll take it. It was de penguins were definitely one of those things where when people realized that I enjoyed them, they just started gifting them to me. And then you end up with like an entire room full of, penguins or cats or strawberries, whatever. And yes, I have a collection of penguins. So feel free to throw penguins at me anytime, people. See me on the street, do it. Well, Matthew, thank you for that wonderful game. I had fun. I hope you enjoyed writing the question.
Oh, I did. I hope people enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I'm not sure how much fun that was for anybody else, but I loved it. So, I'd like to end the podcast with what else? But some joy, because as I've written about before on the Tough Pigs website, there is nothing that represents greater jubilation than flipping a penguin in the air. So let's metaphorically flip some penguins, Matthew. What is something that you are joyful about right now?
Well, the Islanders have not botched the NHL draft yet. Um, and just, being here talking about Muppet Penguins with you.
I agree. This has been a joy. We need to spend more time together, even if even if not on recording.
I mean, let's be honest, I think we may be the only two without a regular podcast, so we may have to start one at some point just to stay on the roster.
Well, maybe this is our audition for the Muppet sports themed podcast we all know Tough Pigs needs.
Explain the infield fly rule using chickens.
I this has legs. Let's make it happen.
Chicken legs?
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I am joyful because I will be getting to see you very soon and a lot of
Yes.
other Tough Pigs people. So that is something I am very much looking forward to. And in real life, which happens
Yes.
so infrequently. And, bringing lots of fellow people together, whether they're penguins or
Yes.
not,
It
is
it is always good to see everybody. It could not come at a better time.
yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Matthew, and bringing a little joy to people's podcast feed.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have anything you want to sign off with? Any place people can find you and share their own joy?
I'm on Blue Sky. You can also find me on the Tough Pigs Discord, where Katie Lynn and I are two of the three administrators. So if anyone has any questions, concerns, issues, you can always reach out to either of us or Becca.
Absolutely. We are always there. So just ping us. Ping us for joyful reasons. Not We always love that too. So check us out there, folks, and thank you for joining us today to celebrate the celebrators. Make sure to flip someone the bird today, but I just hope for their sakes that it's a penguin and not the other bird. Have a good one.
70 Years, 70 Muppets is a Muppet fan podcast presented by toughpigs.com, hosted by a whole myriad of people and edited by them as well. Produced by Jared Fairclough. The Muppet 70 logo used with permission by the Muppet Studio with thanks to Danny Iglesias, Frank Reif Snyder and Lee Slaughter. Don't forget to follow toughpigs.com on all social media platforms. You can support us by heading to patreon.com/toughpigs or buying a t-shirt at tpublic.com/toughpigs.